Welcome to Rich Conversations. This is going to be a really fun episode. We are joined by Olive Moya, all the way from Denver, and I'm so excited to have you here on this podcast. We talk to people all over the world from all different disciplines, and you're a visual artist who lives in Denver, Colorado. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name is Olive Moya. I'm mainly a painter and a muralist, and I live in Denver. I lived in Denver for 8 years. I'm originally from Southern California. I like kind of outside of San Diego, but I went to art school in Los Angeles and was there for quite a while. But yeah, now I've been working and living in Denver.
Yeah, Olive has made these really awesome murals around Denver. They're colorful, they're abstract. It's like the type of art that I enjoy.
Oh,
People
well, thank
who
you.
know this podcast know I like bright colors and abstract and all types of different things like that.
Well, then I got you. I got you
Yeah,
covered.
yeah. Why don't you briefly describe Denver? What is the general vibe of Denver?
Denver is, well, coming from LA, I have a specific view of it. It kind of feels more Midwest to me.
Okay.
But like in the buildings and stuff, I remember first moving here and being like, oh wow, there's all this brick and like which I'm sure
Yeah.
you're used to in Chicago. And people are like generally extremely nice, I would say. And but then there is this, people are very fitness oriented and like love to be outdoors. They're very outdoorsy and um they're just very chill, I would say. Like they're kind of like that
Yeah.
West Coast chillness, but without the I don't know, I don't want to be offensive to my hometown, but like without
I think
the
we all know what you're
ego.
talking about.
Without the ego, yeah.
Yeah.
So I enjoy
Uh,
that aspect of Denver. It was very refreshing. It was confusing at first, but then refreshing after I figured it out.
yeah. What do you think people in Denver value most and what their interests are?
I'd say being outdoors. That's one thing that, like, I think some people would, they're like using their work to just be able to, on their time off, be outdoors, be hiking,
Yeah.
camping, kayaking, rock climbing. I mean, whatever they do and they do with their dogs always. Like, it's just a very outdoor oriented, health oriented place. So, which is really cool. The mountains are nearby and the mountains are incredible. And there's tons of hiking and all that to be had. So, yeah, I think that's kind of people's orientation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you do any of that?
Yeah, I hike and camp. I mean, I'm not like I don't like hike 14ers, which is a Colorado term, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but it's like a thing I know now to hike to 14,000 feet. But yeah, I don't do that, but I do enjoy being outside. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Huh. Now, when I go, so I have a really close friend that lives in Denver. So I've visited a few times now. Um, and everything you describe is pretty accurate.
Yeah, do you confirm? It
I
feels
confirm. I confirm.
okay.
It's
Like
something I would
everyone's
add.
wearing like hiking sandals and like, they're just ready to go on a hike at all times,
Yeah,
you know?
it's almost like a
It
personality in a
is.
way.
It is. Whereas like in LA, that would never be. You're ready, you're full like face of makeup and ready at all times, That's
Yeah,
like a
it's like
whole
a different
different,
thing.
yeah.
Well, what I noticed too is they love breweries out there.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the biggest things coming from California. Like beer is not, I mean, at least not in my world. I was like, I don't know, Corona is a beer. That was all I knew about. And
Yeah,
here they were like, no, we're serious about beer. And I was like, all right. I grew up in wine country, so I'm just like, whatever about that.
yeah,
But as the years have gone on, I'm not joking, and all my friends back home will make fun of me. I like beer now. And they're like,
Yeah.
of course you do. I'm like, hey, IPAs, guys. It's really cool. Craft breweries. They're like, all right. But yeah, so Denver has opened my eyes to the world of beer. And it
Yeah.
smells like, if you go downtown, it just smells like beer a lot. Like weed and beer, not to be, stereotypical, but that's what
Yeah.
it smells like, hops all the time.
Yeah. And then there's like food trucks. There's a good food truck scene there too, right?
Yeah, there's a good food scene in general, I would
Yeah.
say. I love food, so I
I do
support that.
remember there's this one time I went to a brewery kind of downtown. I wish I remember the name, but a lot of it too, like these breweries that it's like new industrial. So it's like a
Hmm.
lot of like wood and openness and beams
The
and
garage door's always open. That's a
yeah,
Denver
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
And so we're in this big space and we're with a group of like maybe 10 to 12 people. And I just start like bursting out laughing. And my friend nudges me. He's like, what? What's so funny? I go, I am literally the only man in this brewery not wearing a flannel shirt.
Or having a beard. Did everyone
Yeah,
have a beard? Like
a lot of beards, a lot of
a lot of
beards.
beards in Denver. I remember I used to, like, before I was making abstract work, I illustrated a lot and I drew in my sketchbook. And that was like one of the first things I drew, was just like lettering that said, Denver, there's a lot of bearded men here. Because,
Yeah,
like, I don't know, it's just a thing, flannels and beards.
yeah, it definitely fits into that.
Yep.
Well, switching gears a little bit. I want to explore your art and pick your brain about all of this. Like, what would you say the role is and the impact is of like a visual artist and painter and muralist, like you said, in society?
I think I think we were talking about being human and like connecting as humans, and I think what makes humans special, or like separates us from animals, is that we have a creative ability. And we have this ability to think on another level and
Yeah,
express ourselves. And I think there's always this joke, like, if there was an apocalypse or something, that art would be the last thing you would need, which is, I mean, let's be fair, that's probably true at first. But I think art is what makes us human. Like, it makes us feel, and it makes us think, and it just makes, it gives like a glimpse into why, like, humans think about why are we alive in a way that animals don't. They just
yeah,
exist, and we're like, well, why are we existing? And I think art is like a glimpse into why we exist. And it gives us reason to live. And anything created kind of does, reading, writing that really moves us, or seeing something painted that really moves us, or anything like that. um so I think that being able to see it um in any sort of form and be affected by it is important, just like spiritually, emotionally,
yeah,
in that realm, in
yeah.
a
I
way that
love that.
sometimes I think people can't describe. Like, it's important, but you don't know why. Like like during the pandemic, I assumed like art was going to be like, no one cared about it. I
Mhm.
wasn't going to be able to sell paintings, like people are losing their jobs. And it was actually the opposite. I felt like a lot of people that I knew that were artists, myself included, had kind of a boom in business, because people are at home and needing to feel connected to other people. And what better way to like get something handmade that someone created, and because they like felt it in their soul. And you
Yeah,
get to have this physical representation of that you get to look at every day, and like have your own experience with, and your own feelings of ownership over. And so I feel, but I don't know that people knew how to explain that. So, but I think that that's where the importance lies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well said. Yeah, we were talking
Thank you.
earlier before the recording about just the human experience and how, you know, people all over the world, we're all humans, so we can all find connection in a way. And art is something too. I'm sure you would agree that like it like transcends language. Like you
Yeah.
don't need to understand something, you just like feel it in a way.
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I mean, obviously there's like cultural indicators that help you understand art better, like that may be confusing if you took it from one culture to the next, but then there's also through lines that like
Mhm.
transcends culture and language and all those things. So yeah, it's definitely a human experience.
So how did you get into art and creativity and storytelling?
Well, I always, it's kind of like the normal artist story. I just was always making things since I was really young. And my mom, I'm actually adopted, so I think my mom was like, had no preconceived notions about what I was going to be good at or whatever. So anything that I gravitated towards, she was like, threw it at me, like, sure, okay, if
Yeah.
you're into that, do that. And so I had a lot of random things, not random, I was interested, but she would just throw things at me like, oh, you like
Yeah.
music? Oh, you like this? Um, so as soon as I was drawing at like 2, 3 years old, she was like, okay. And she'd buy me all these art supplies. And um, I took art lessons. And then in high school, I was going to go to school to become, I don't know, whatever, a teacher or just something regular.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, you know that there's art school, right? And I was like, no, what? She's like, yeah, you can become an artist, which is like the opposite of most parents. Most parents would be like, please don't become an artist.
Yeah.
Uh, please don't. I think she maybe regretted it a few times, like during
Uh-huh.
my learning, being in college and stuff. But uh, yeah, and so then they took me to some art schools, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I have to do. I felt like I belonged immediately. I walked in and I was like, these are my people. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just was always creating, and then art school just solidified that for me, and I haven't wanted to do anything since.
Yeah. Describe describe art school. I met someone yesterday. So I went to the Art Institute of Chicago yesterday.
Okay.
And then like I was hanging out. I go to I'm a member at the Art Institute, and then I typically visit and then go to the athletic association after. It's like really cool space, this Gothic Venetian architecture. And I'm just chilling there and I strike up a conversation with someone, and she went to like art school.
Hmm.
But like what exactly like someone who hasn't gone to art school, like what exactly happens in art
Did you go
school?
to school? What kind of school did you go to?
I would say like a more liberal arts, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, art school is um it's basically you take all the weird artsy kids and just stick them in a school together, and it's exactly what you would imagine. Like everyone is so different and specific, and like I remember specifically there's this one girl who everything was rainbow. Her hair was all colors, and then
Mhm.
like every every single day she dressed like in the rainbow. And so you would just see this like rainbow walking around all the time. And then there was people who were just like product designers, so you could tell they were product designers. And then there
Yeah.
was people who were fashion, like all the fashion people always wore high heels every single day and like looked fabulous. And then there was like it's just like all the kids that like didn't fit in at their high school come together and all kind of fit in this weird way at art school. But my favorite thing, that's just like a picture of what it was like. But my favorite thing was everything was open to try. Like no one ever said anything was weird. No one ever really judged anything. It was kind of just like, I mean, we had critiques obviously, which were painful,
Yeah.
um but it was just like on the weekends you'd be like, I just want to go do this thing. Would you like paint your face and grab a few of these things and just come with me at like, I don't know, midnight, and I'll bring some lights and we'll take some photos. Like, it was just like weird. People just had weird ideas all the time, and everyone was just like, yeah, let's do it. And so it just was such a creative space because everyone was just, their minds were just really open to seeing things and trying things and doing whatever. And there's just constant random things going on. Like someone's art project was just like digging up the grass in the middle of the like foyer or whatever, and like putting something there, like a big hole. And then someone else would hang hammocks like from the parking garage that you could never get into. And like, there's just, you know, just things happening all the time.
Oh man, that sounds magical. It sounds like
magical.
Yeah, like something I notice about society, or like as people grow older, they lose that sense of wonder and imagination they had as children. And yet, like, most of the problems we have in society require creativity and imagination to solve them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, that's something I'm curious about, is like, at what point does that like inner child leave someone, even though it's like always there, and like what unlocks it? I'm curious about that, you know?
Well, it's like we break it out of them on purpose. Have you ever seen Beautiful Losers, the documentary?
No.
That's definitely something that changed my thinking. But there's a artist, Ed Templeton, he's being interviewed, and he's talking about when you're in school and there's like a certain age, like second or third grade, where you get the message that you're either good at drawing or bad at drawing, based on the fact that you can make something look like it looks like in real life, which is a silly measure. I mean, don't even get me started on that. Like, we have cameras. We don't need to draw to make it look like real life. That's not the point of drawing, but that's what like mainstream everybody decides you're good at drawing because you can make it look like real life. But yeah, and he was saying like at that age, suddenly we get that. And the people who are told that they're not good at drawing, or get the message by seeing who is good at drawing, they stop making things. And it's like the saddest thing in the whole world, because, well, first of all, that's, like I said, not really the point of creating things. And it's not like, creativity goes, and there's so many ways you could explore it. You don't have to know how to draw, but that's kind of where we kill it. You're not good at art. And all the time when I'm painting murals, I get people, the number one comment, you could ask any muralist this, the number one comment I get is, wow, I can't even draw a stick figure. And you're just like, so like, that's not a gauge for if you should be able to create or not. And I kind of feel like that's why like Pinterest exists on the level that it does, is because I think everyone is creative and they need to have a creative outlet, but they don't know how to, because it wasn't cultivated in them. And so they refer to something like Pinterest where they can do something creative, but they're like given a step by step and they don't feel like intimidated by it, you know? Which just makes me sad, because I'm sure all those people could have been creative if someone just said, like, do it. Everyone can do it. But
so then how did you get into murals, and like what do you love about creating murals? And if you can break down that process for me, I would love to know that.
Okay, well, I wanted to create murals in college. Murals weren't like trendy like they are now when I was in school, but there were definitely some muralists. I don't even think they exist. This guy named Blue, BLU. I like can't even find his work anymore. But there was like a few muralists, or like public. Beautiful Losers was kind of part of that. They made a lot of bigger public works, the people in that collective. But uh, I just was fascinated by it, and I always wanted to do it. And I liked the idea that it didn't exist in the white cube. Like in art, the white cube is like the gallery setting. It's plain white
Yeah.
walls. You can't touch anything. Um, and that's a space where people are like non-art people are mostly really intimidated to walk in somewhere like that because they don't know what they're talking about or whatever. Museums and galleries can kind of feel like not very inclusive to people
Yeah.
who don't know how to speak about art. And so I was always interested because I started in fine art photography and then I switched to illustration. So I kind of switched from something that exists in that white cube to something that's more for everybody. But I was
Mhm.
still in between. Like I wasn't necessarily super interested in someone telling me a message that I have to then relay. I wanted to relay my own message, but to everybody.
Yeah.
So my senior project, my thesis, I like made these big, well, they seemed big to me at the time, but it was like 15 by 8 foot canvas. And I painted on them and I rolled them up and then I would just take them different places around LA and like hang them up. And then I would stand and just ask people what they thought about them. They were like walking around because I was just interested in how someone who isn't in that world would interact with the thing or like be if they were interested or not or what. So that was kind of my project and I made a book about it because I recorded all the conversations and all the different places and then I took photos everywhere. I hung them up. So that was kind of my first part of that. And then I didn't really paint any murals until I got to Denver. And that just started. I just painted one in my house because I was like, I'm going to. And then this coffee shop, art, such an art thing. Then a coffee shop was
Then
like,
the coffee shop is the first in line to go, hey,
yeah.
I'll help.
Yeah. Well, and
I
I
like art.
strategically spent a lot of time at this coffee shop. I'm also just like a coffee shop person.
Yeah.
I would like spend hours and hours drawing and reading and just being at a coffee shop. So this specific one who had remembered me because I was always there drawing, followed me on Instagram, was like, hey, would you want to paint something like that on our wall? And I was like, absolutely, yes. So I painted this coffee shop called Huckleberry Roasters and I lettered, I'm very into lettering too, and I always have been. So I lettered don't stop, get it on the wall with like my colorful, I call them noodles, which is a very technical term for like my light colorful line work. And yeah, so then after that it just like, I don't know, it just started and people started asking me. And then it's been 3 years of just constantly making murals, which is my favorite thing to do. So um yeah, and then the process, it kind of depends on who I'm painting it for, but usually it's like they've seen something that I did, they like it, they want it similar, or
Mhm.
have another like aspect to it. Maybe they have some colors that they're really interested in. Um, and then I create like a few designs. Maybe it needs a change or two.
Mhm.
The best clients, it's so funny, the clients that never that think that art isn't worth anything and don't want to pay for it, they want tons of changes and they want it exactly how they want it.
That's
And
the
then the
same
people
thing
who
that,
are ready
yeah,
to throw money at
I
it
hear. Yeah.
see the first thing and they're like, it's great, we love it.
I hear that with
So
artists too. Talking
yeah,
to other artists. Yeah.
it's funny. So I've started to be like, if you're not interested in paying for it and you're trying to talk me down a lot, I can feel that it's going to be the worst project.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to like the end result. So I've gotten smarter that way. But yeah, and then I mean, I don't know how many specifics you want, but yeah, I pick out colors, I buy paint, I have my whole setup, I roll up, I paint it, I sketch it. Like some people,
Yeah. What is the technical process when you like, okay, so you got a wall.
yeah.
What are the steps you take to create a mural from like start to finish?
I just sketch freehand. Unless I'm doing lettering, then I
Okay.
will draw my lettering like on Procreate, and then um tile print it. Is actually not the best way. I should have gotten a projector a long time ago, but I just haven't, so I just keep rolling with it. But I tile print it on paper. I have a printer that does like bigger sheets of paper, so I don't have to use 1,000 8.5 by 11s. But
Okay.
and then I use transfer paper, which is like paper that has like chalk on one side, kind of. So you put that between the paper and the wall, and then just trace my own design. And then I pull it off, and there's basically chalk on the wall. And then I paint
Oh,
my design from there. But all the abstract stuff I just freehand because it just works better that way. And I'm just more comfortable with that. And you kind of got to like move with the space, especially in my work. Like
okay.
it kind of, it has to feel right in the space, and doing it in the computer or just drawing it on paper is always different than what it feels like in real life.
Yeah.
And then,
And that,
yeah, I just paint the background usually first, or like the colors that suck that I love to use, like yellow or yellow green takes like 500 coats. So I always do that first because it's going to take a million coats. And then, yeah, lettering is last if it has lettering or any sort of black. And then if I wheat paste, which is like the photography aspect, that's a whole different process.
what was that last one? The wheat
Wheat
paste?
paste, which is like if you see the murals that have like black and white photography included in them, um,
Okay.
that's called wheat pasting. And it's like wallpaper paste mixed with acrylic, and you have to like, it's basically glue. So you like put glue on the wall, then you put paper, like a printed imagery on it, and then you like smooth it out and then paste on top of it. And then I usually paint on top of that with my colors.
Wow.
So it's kind of like collage and abstract at the same time.
Yeah, I'm going through your Instagram for
Oh
people
yeah.
that are can't really see it too well on here. Oh, they're a little
Yeah,
better.
I see which one that
Yeah.
is. That's for like a kid's like this place that does like art and music lessons for kids that their families can't afford it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Got another
Crew.
one.
That was a fun one.
So do you oh, this is a cool one. Yeah, this one the finished one is how are you really?
Yeah, that was for a mental health organization.
So
Um,
is there a
yeah.
common theme in the places that hire you to make murals? You mentioned like a community
Um,
center, mental health, children.
yeah, I definitely maybe gravitate towards, or people gravitate towards my work that are like I've done schools. I painted a huge mural in the school with third graders, which was really interesting and fun. Um, and yeah, stuff for children, I feel like happens a lot, or mental health. I've done a few like mental health related murals. Um, or things like with the photography, it's like
Mm.
brings in historical or aspects. So
Oh,
I
okay.
feel like
Yeah.
that, like I did one in Vale that had some photographs from like 1960 or something. And so I feel
Oh,
like
nice.
history and like community and belonging kind of comes into that. I
Mm.
did one that included like in Colorado Springs, they're kind of famous for the trolley system that would go up
Okay.
to um the mountains and stuff. So I did some that included all these old photos of the trolleys. So yeah, I feel like maybe it's my colors are just happy, appeals to children, appeals to like
Yeah.
people who are trying to send positive messages.
which is probably why it attracted me too. You're like, I like art
probably. Yeah. Which is exactly what I'm going. Like, that's great. I'm happy about that.
What's the significance of you said noodles, like the noodles in them?
Uh-huh. I feel like the noodles have kind of come to represent pathways, and there's sort of like most of it came out of, I feel like, my illustration background. It's like clean lines and like really graphic looking, and like lettering. I did all sorts of lettering, but it's almost like that, like zoomed in really far. So I feel like the line work came from me lettering things, but if you just were looking at it really close. But then it evolved to become, like I said, these pathways, and I've done a lot of things with like glitching in my work. I don't know if probably the ones you were looking at, you couldn't. Oh, the cottage arts one, it was like glitched where it's like shifted a little bit. That's definitely for me like a way of storytelling. Like it almost kind of represents like a storyline, like boxes in a cartoon. You know, you go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's like the passage of time and how things are changing. Like, you know, something happens and then it shifts everything. So I feel like there's just a lot of movement and stuff that's indicating the passage of time, or sort of a timeline or a story, but it's all abstracted. And obviously, like any abstract work, you can get a feeling. Like if the line work is really busy and loopy and whatever, it could be more stressful feeling or more energetic. But if it's like meandering, that's a whole different feeling. So yeah.
Which is mostly
that
what
your question.
Yours seems like meandering, right?
But there's some that are like way more chaotic feeling. So just sort of depends. I think with murals, it ends up being more meandering because people get stressed out by the more chaotic feel. So some of my other like personal paintings that I just make probably were more busy. But yeah.
So what do you think the benefits are of murals for the general public?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about, that most people don't feel comfortable in art space, in the clean art spaces. And so this is murals, or public work, is a way to bring art to people in a space that they already feel comfortable in. And give them some ownership. Like I think not everybody gets to own a painting necessarily, or like an original work. And some people don't even think about buying artwork. But say you walk the same path to work or home or to the grocery store or whatever every day, or you drive the same path, you're going to see that piece every single day. And in some way it's yours because you have memories associated to it. Like in the same way that Hey Jude is my song for a specific reason, but Hey Jude is everyone's song for their own reason. And it was Paul and John and George and Ringo's song for all four of their own reasons, but it like becomes something else as time goes on. So I like the idea that my work can be someone's, that they can have it in their own way, because they have their own memories attached to it. And so I feel like it's important to have work that everybody has access to and can feel connected with. And because my work is abstract, I feel like more people connect with it because there isn't markers in there that necessarily leave people out.
Yeah, it feels totally spot on of what you said. I'm looking right now so every time, so I bartend on the weekends, and every time I go to work, there's a mural. I cut through the alleyway and there's this mural, and oftentimes there'll be people there taking photos with it. And
And you're like, I know that old thing. That's mine.
Yeah. This is, let's see, this isn't a great photo necessarily because it's not directly on it, but I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it's so hard to see. Is it abstract though?
Yeah, it's
oh, there, I see it.
Yeah.
I see it. Nice. Yeah, that's colorful for sure.
Yeah, it just brightens the neighborhood because that neighborhood used to be like really dark and like sketchy.
Yeah.
And then you put this massive art piece in it, and all of a sudden, now people are like drawn to it.
I know.
And it's not sketchy anymore. It's like brings out hope and you know, just walking through to work, it's like it can put me in a good mood, you know, or every time I'm going to work, I'm taking a photo of this darn alleyway.
I know.
And it gives you this like this mindset.
That's something that never ceases to amaze me. Like, it's my own work and I know how it's going to look. But when you see the wall before and then you see it after, I'm never done being excited about how different it looks. Yeah.
This is a photo of it at night. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I did an alleyway that was like pretty, like it smelled like piss the whole time we were there.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, it was whatever. It was an alleyway. But that's one of my favorite pieces. Like I love walking down there now. And yeah, it totally transforms a space and makes you feel different.
And it's like
just some paint. That's it. It's crazy.
Yeah. And like wrapping your head around it, it's like, what is the value of that, where people are just going about their lives and then something, just paint, like you said, can elevate someone's mood, someone's mindset. And it's a very like active, where that happens almost instantly. And then the next interaction they have with someone, that transfers to it. And like,
yeah,
it's hard to trace the value and the importance and like the effectiveness of it in a way.
Yeah, which is why like that's another cool thing about public art is you get to just let, if you can't, some artists it probably would be harder for, but you just let go of your thing, your baby, you know, you have to let go and say, someone could tag it could be gone.
Yeah.
They might paint over it.
Someone might vandalize it.
Someone might hate it. Someone might just hate it. Like,
yeah.
And that's their own right to hate it. And some people might hold on to it and love it. And some people will take pictures of it. And some people will think it's like, I've had some people be like, is it snakes? And I'm like, sure. Like, why not? I don't know. And that might bother some artists, but to me, I'm just like, if that's what you want to put on it, whatever, like, that's fine if you need to see something in it. And so you kind of have to let go and say, it's out in the world now and it's going to have this effect on people. And I won't always know what that effect is, but every once in a while you get people that you meet them in some way and they're like, oh my God, I walk by your mural every single day and I love it. Like, it always makes me happy or whatever. And you get that little bit of hearing about what happened for other people and how it affected other people. And it's really gratifying to be able to hear that.
Oh man, I bet.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite experience from creating murals?
Oh man, I have so many fun, like, I just have had the best time, I have to say. Well, probably the most exciting thing last year was getting to create a piece with my friend Emily Hope Dopkin for the Denver Art Museum. That was like kind of just an unreal experience. Yeah, it was just different than anything I'd done. And it was really exciting to be a part of. They were like renovated this incredible
Yes.
building. And yeah, that's not even the real, that's just the mock-up. I can't believe
Oh, really?
I don't have an actual picture of it up. That's my bad. I'm bad at social media. But yeah, that was the best experience because it got to touch so many people, and like the photos used on the wheat paste were other people's photos that we had them send in. And so it was very about community. And we had people come back and be like, oh my God, that's my photo. And so you're like infusing
Yeah.
this piece with all of people's memories, even more so than what we were just saying. Like really, they took a photo of the sky in their backyard or something that means something to them, and now it's on this wall for the next couple of years. And yeah, it was just a really cool experience.
Wow.
I enjoyed it.
Is that still there then?
Yeah, yep, it's up until it was supposed to be up for 2 years, and that was starting in October. So yeah, we've got like a year and a
Wow.
half to go.
Wow, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Do you notice any like trends or like trends in society or business since working as a visual artist?
um that's a hard question. Trends in society or business? um Something that is kind of weird for me is that like murals are trendy. um I think most people genuinely enjoy them, and that's the reason that they want them. But I also think, like, I've done a lot of work for, and I'm not bagging on it. Like, I'm really grateful for all the work that I got to do, and it's always fun for me. So I'm never upset. But there's just a lot of like apartment complexes that are like, let's put your mural here, and like, let's do a, inspirational saying. And I've definitely veered like away from that because it feels
Uh,
not genuine, I guess.
yeah.
So I don't know. There's definitely always that side of it that's like, hey, everybody else has murals with inspirational sayings that people like to take photos in front of. So let's do that
Yeah.
too. You're our gal, And that kind of feels weird to me because I definitely didn't get into making murals for that aspect of it. But
So then
um
how do you like balance that of like it's a good thing that murals are trendy and popular because it adds value, but how much of it is just doing it because everybody else is doing it? Is
I
like
don't
what does
know.
it
I
water
still
it down
struggle.
the effects or yeah.
Yeah, I think in some ways, yes, but I also don't want to, like, there's enough space in the world for everybody. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to, I want everybody to be able to make their work, and I want everybody to make money. Like, it's hard to be an
Yeah.
artist, and murals make money. And I mean, I'm able to full time be an artist because of murals. And
Mhm.
I never, honestly, I never thought that was gonna happen. I kind of gave up on that a while ago. But so I don't know. It's hard, and it's hard for me. Like, I'm actually at this point in my career right now where I'm getting ready to take a long break from painting murals. And not that I always, not that I don't ever want to do them again. I do, but I think I
Yeah.
just want to. I haven't had time or space. I've been painting them nonstop, which is a lot of. They're just a lot of physical work. And
Yeah.
um, I haven't had space to like grow and come up with new ideas because people are saying, "Hey, I like this. Could you do it
Mm.
similar to that?" And so I
Yeah.
keep like getting recycled ideas because they're like looking at a mural I did 2 years ago, and I'm personally bored with it. But then it's hard. I'm like, well, I have to pay my bills. And so I'm constantly just trying to juggle what I want and what they want, and paying bills and living and all that. So I am taking a break soon, and I think it will help give me more clarity on like what I need to do. And just make things in my studio and grow kind of, and
Yeah.
then hopefully in the future, my goal would be to take on murals just more sparingly, like do the
Yeah.
projects that really mean something to me, like the mental health ones.
Yeah.
Those really mean something to me, or stuff with kids. um and then kind of try, if I can financially, say no to some other things and just move on, because I think once I started doing the wheat pasting, and during COVID, that was just like I had a big chunk of time to do that.
Yeah.
As soon as people saw it, then they were like, we want that too, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like I need the time to come up with new things. And then hopefully people will also like those things, but there just hasn't been time for that. So
Yeah. So that's like then the conundrum as like a successful artist is like what makes an artist great, or like a true artist, is like always growing, always exploring curiosity, always getting better and better and better.
mhm.
But then once you're successful, then like your time is more limited in that growth, and people want you to just play the hits, and like
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
like
good place
Pollock.
and a interesting place to be in.
Yeah, it's like Jackson Pollock got stuck doing his drip paintings or whatever
Yeah.
because he moved on, and then people were like, "No, no, no, we don't want that.
Yeah, yeah, it's like
We want your drip paintings." And he's like, "This is just one tiny snippet of my life." Like
yeah.
someone, not to talk about the Beatles again, but like I'm going to. Like the Beatles, I feel like they did a really good job of being like, "Oh, can I curse on this
Sure,
podcast?"
yeah.
Screw what you guys want. Like we're doing something new based on our experiences every time. Like you get something
Yeah.
like Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club, and I'm sure people at the time were
Yeah.
like, excuse me, like it doesn't flow with what they wanted from them, but they were like,
Yeah.
screw you, we went to India and we had all these experiences.
I'm a
Yeah.
huge Beatles fan. Beatles are
Okay,
my
good.
favorite. And like you said too, I love how they just kept growing and kept pushing boundaries. This is probably my favorite Beatles book. It's called
And then
Revolution in the
people
Head.
loved them.
Yeah.
I
So
have another one I read recently, but I have not read that one.
yeah, this one's about the correlation between the Beatles records and the 1960s, and how
Oh,
like
okay. I
they're
love that.
intertwined with each other. Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
interesting.
Like they were influenced by that time period, but then they influenced that
So,
time
yeah, yeah,
period.
it's like this
Yeah.
interweaving.
Because they were
And
so big, it's like they couldn't not influence that time period, but they were also a product of it. That's so cool.
yeah, and
Thanks
it's
for the
also too like
recommendation.
they are the Beatles. So like no, the record label knows how much they're selling.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're not gonna like not put out a Beatles record because you're gonna make a
Yeah,
lot of money.
they had this special privilege of
Yeah,
being able to push the boundaries and then still get accepted for it. I
yeah,
think a lot of bands and musicians, that doesn't happen. They move on and then people are like, that's not what we used to. We want the old way, which
yeah,
is so anti creativity. Like for
yeah,
artists, everybody, like any type of artist, writer, musician, like that is so sad.
yeah,
But yeah, they're the ones that I feel like they did exactly that, and they were always rewarded for it. And you look at every album and it's like so different and growing and pushing boundaries of the time. And that's always like my pedestal of like, well, the Beatles did it, like just keep pushing.
yeah,
And if they don't, if I guess there's always a chance that they don't accept you, and then but like you can't fear, like the more fear, this is what I keep telling myself because I do have tons of fear. But like fear just like limits creativity, it kills it. So
yeah,
you just gotta go and hope that people will see what was important to you and why it mattered. And yeah.
yeah. What's your favorite Beatles record album?
I would have to say Sergeant Pepper.
Okay.
I like the weird like um long trippy songs with the like yeah, I think that album is probably my favorite. I'm trying to think, or the White Album, but yeah, those are my
Yeah, those are
two.
good.
What's yours?
It feels like it shifts all the time, but I would say Rubber Soul probably.
Oh yeah, I always forget
Yeah.
about Rubber Soul.
White
Yeah,
Album.
Rubber Soul is also like has trippy moments that I like.
Yeah, that was like when I listen to that. To me, it feels like that album is like the moment that the 60s kick off of like what we know the 60s to be. That
Yeah.
album's just like you listen to it and you're like, the 60s are here, you know?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And I would say I didn't
Like, is it
listen.
I Am the Walrus? Is that on that album?
No, that one's
No, no.
that one is
What am I
after
thinking
Sergeant
of?
Pepper's. The Sergeant like I didn't get into Sergeant Pepper's as much until COVID. Then I like really listened to Sergeant
Okay.
Pepper's. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like one of my favorites. But
That's the most part is each has a time period in your life that it's
yeah,
like attached to.
it's like they were riding so high that like off of Sergeant Pepper's because they like stopped touring. And back then, a musician, like that's how you made your money. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
records.
Right.
And then it was like the first kind of like full length album where there's kind of a theme throughout in a way, or concept album. And then it came out and they all knew, they're like, yeah, we're the best. So then they had the Magical Mystery Tour. They just did like whatever they wanted. So there was all these
That's what I
weird
love about it. It's
songs.
super weird.
Yeah.
I
And
love
then
how super weird it is. I'm
yeah, and
also
then
an
they
ex
go to
I'm an
India.
ex theater kid.
Okay.
So like being a theater kid, maybe it makes more sense why I like Sergeant Pepper. Like it just is super theatery
Theatrical.
feeling to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you
So
gonna do? You're gonna take a step back.
yeah.
Uh, what kinds of things are you gonna do to kind of explore and push your own artistic boundaries?
Um well, it's hard for me to do because I'm not a person that doesn't do things, but I need to relax. Like
Yeah.
not necessarily just sit around, but just like I find a lot of inspiration from giving myself time to think, and I have not had any just time to think,
Yeah.
uh, or read or go to a museum because I just want to take a day and do that. And so I feel like, or even going outside, like hiking, camping, all of that gives me getting away from the internet, obviously, really gives me the space to think deeper about the things that I care about and like how to communicate them and just get ideas. So
Yeah.
that's I kind of want to focus on not focusing on anything,
Yeah.
and I think it will come. Like I read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I've
Okay.
never read her other books. Like I know she was famous for Eat, Pray, Love and whatever, but I heard her on a podcast and I just kind of she's great on I've heard a lot of interviews of hers and she just kind of like feels like a good person that you would find inspiration from. And I read this book and there are moments of it that are like self-helpy, which really turns me off. But most of it is like kind of what you're doing. Follow your curiosity. It doesn't have to relate to your work,
Yeah.
but it will always come back to it. And she just talks about
Yeah.
like one time she just got really into flowers and she just randomly was like super reading about like different families of flowers and different types and she was gardening and doing all this stuff and it felt off topic like man you really got to get back to work and but she kept just pushing and being like
Yeah.
just follow your curiosity and then it ended up leading somewhere for her work and she ended up
Yeah.
writing something about whatever but it was related but it's kind of like what we were saying like if you're interested in learning something about science or just following whatever, go do that thing because it will always like your work is in you. It will always inform your work and like
Mhm.
be important in some way. And sometimes getting out of the box of, this is what an artist does, this is how an artist thinks, and especially getting away from the internet, because I feel like the internet is screwing things up where like everything is recycled. I'm looking
Yeah.
so much at art, like I mainly follow artists, so I'm looking so much at art that sometimes I wonder if my
Mm.
ideas are mine, or if I'm just like, it's in my subconscious, the other thing that I
Wow.
saw
Yeah.
that I liked, and that really bothers me. And then it bothers me that like we can see so much, whereas before maybe there was someone making something that's similar to mine
Mhm.
on the other side of the world or just on another state, but I wouldn't know about it. But now I see all of that, and it kind of feels defeating to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, tons of people make things with lines and shapes and color. Why am I even making anything, you know?
Yeah.
And that just all kind of brings everything down. So just kind of getting away from that and taking some time, and
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great and necessary. That's yeah. What?
Yeah. It's not
What?
rewarded in society or financially, but I think it's something that most artists will tell you you have to do. Like, just kind of,
Yeah.
you need, as an artist, you just need a lot of time to fuck around and do nothing,
Yeah.
because it leads to things.
And it's like a long-term mindset.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. I could just keep painting murals for as long as people want me to. That's another thing I fear, that it's just going to go away and like no one will want them anymore. Money wise, that scares me, but I don't know. I think it needs to be, I can't do that. Like I have to work from what's
Yeah.
important to me.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. That's awesome. Are there like three things or people or music that has influenced your outlook on life?
um, I feel like that documentary I told you about, I haven't even watched it in like 10 years, but I feel like that documentary definitely
Okay.
changed how I thought about making art. Beautiful
Beautiful
Losers.
Losers. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then this also feels very cliche, but I've always loved Keith Haring, and I think once I read about why he made art, it clicked with me immediately. It was the same idea of like, art is for everybody, art should be accessible for everyone. And he was very just did what he wanted to. There's something, I mean, I guess that and Beautiful Losers is just very like white male centered, but like there's
Who
something
is Keith
about,
Haring, by the way?
if you Google it, you will know. He was an extremely famous muralist in the late 80s, early 90s. Well, he died in the early 90s of AIDS, but um, he, like, if you see his work, I'm sure like in the 80s and the 90s, it was on every t-shirt
Oh,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
so it's a weird example of, so I have an art podcast, and so I just did an episode on him. So I did a really deep dive into like reading all of his
Yeah.
diaries and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he was kind of that same in between, where like he wanted to exist in the fine art world and like be creative, but he also, his work appealed to people, and he wanted to appeal to people, and he worked with kids, and he worked with, you know, all sorts of like, whatever. We won't get into Keith Haring, but I could talk forever on him. But yeah, he kind of just inspired me to be like,
Yeah.
do both of those things, inspired me to be like, do what you want to do.
Mhm.
Like, I think especially as a woman, you kind of you just always have this like people pleasing side of you. You're trying to like do the right thing and like be, um, I definitely don't feel like I'm one to just go paint a wall without permission. Like, I'm very follow the rules and do what people
Mhm.
want, don't make anybody mad, and like no confrontation. And I feel like a lot of these guys, possibly because they are white males, they're just like, no, do whatever you want to do. And I think
Yeah.
it kind of made me feel like, hey, yeah, you're right. I think I can do whatever I want to do. And so it always gets me excited to just think like, um, to just act and to do your thing and just believe in it
Yeah.
and not care so much what other people think.
Yeah.
But that's still like a constant cycle in my brain of caring what people think and then
Yeah.
trying
Well,
not to care.
I mean, we're
And then
humans. It's like
yeah.
part of it. It's like kind of
Yeah.
unavoidable. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm so sorry. Yeah, and then you said three. The last one would be another white male, unfortunately. But do you listen to the Pete Holmes podcast? He's like a comedian.
I have not.
It's called You Made It Weird.
Okay.
And he's a super quirky, weird guy. But I started listening to his podcast like right in the beginning of when he had it, and it's kind of his journey. It's interesting because he's like a comedian, he's in LA. Comedians are very much, very centered around work and like, you got to self promote, and it's this kind of like
Yeah.
interesting thing that artists also have to do. But you kind of follow him, or I have on the last however long he's had this podcast, you follow him on this journey of like um just looking into his spirituality, and like he interviews a lot of just like Buddhist and more interesting spiritual people. And to see those two collide, like, could you be an artist, which is like something where you have to be very focused on yourself almost, which is weird,
Yeah.
like yourself and your voice and your style and promoting yourself, and also have this universal, like, I'm not really important, but that's okay, like trying to understand the universe in this other way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a nice, I love listening to him. It always makes me feel, he's like funny and chill, but um interested in these deeper spiritual and emotional things.
Yeah. Let me show you something real quick.
Yeah.
This is the book I'm finishing up right now. It's called Nothing and Everything. And
Okay.
it's about how the influence of Buddhism on the American avant-garde, 1942 to
Ooh.
1962.
Is this like the book I've been looking for my whole life or what?
Maybe
Nothing
it's
and everything. Sounds like very exactly what I would like to read.
yeah, it's great. You mentioned Jackson Pollock before. He's in here. Yeah, specifically in like New York City during this time.
Okay.
So you have like the names of like John Cage and Joseph Albers is mentioned a couple of times. The Beat Generations, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg,
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that
been
goes
super
right into
interesting.
what we were talking
I'm on the
about.
last chapter, so yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm into that, clearly.
Yeah, the like you said before, the as an artist, a lot of this is like rooted in like Zen Buddhism and just like being in the moment, creating and just letting it come to you rather than force it. And you're again like this insignificance, and you're just like here in the now, and everything, every moment. Life is just these moments, and you're in the moments you're giving yourself to it and everything. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have to like contend with the opposite side of all that. Like, yeah, it's an interesting correlation.
Yeah. It's a
Definitely.
balancing act for sure.
Yeah. Yep. You
Yeah.
have to have both. You have to be able to realize that you are nothing, and we'll never make anything original. Like everything has already
Yeah.
been done and made before, but you still do it. Why do you do it? And yeah, being in the now, like painting is therapeutic for that reason. You're
Mhm.
just there in it, not thinking about anything. And yeah, we're trying not to.
Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I have one last question for you.
Yes.
It's one that I always enjoy asking guests, and that's, what are you curious about recently?
What am I curious about? Hmm. I think, I mean, this is not like a random interesting thing that comes out of nowhere, but I'm very curious about like what we've been talking about. What effect would kind of doing more of nothing have? Like what effect uh on inspiration will that have for me? I think that's like my main like driving where I want to go towards.
Yeah.
What is my brain without
Mhm.
all the things that are constantly being thrown at it all the time?
Yeah.
I know that's just like a tired, like we're all kind of like involved in the internet and also sick of the internet at the same time. But that's where I'm at, you know?
Yeah, that statement couldn't be more accurate.
Yeah. It's like you can't not do it and you can't, but you also just don't want to at the same time. So yeah, that's my main curiosity is like, what's my brain off the internet? What's my brain away from all those things?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, Olive, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a
Yeah.
fabulous
Thank you for
conversation.
having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now I have 2 books to go look at and I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you share with people where they can find you and find your work and follow you?
Yeah. Um, my Instagram is Olive Moya, Moya, Olive like the food. And my website is olivemoyastudio.com. And if you want to look up my art, if you're interested in learning about art, but you don't know where to start and you feel intimidated, you can look at my podcast, which is Middlebrow Podcast.
Not
And
highbrow, not lowbrow, middlebrow.
that's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again for coming on. This has been great.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.